What's going on, everyone? Welcome to our debut episode of Season 2 of the Backroad. It's our first live stream episode, and we're glad to have you on board. My name's Elliot Hicks. I've got Seth Woolcock and Rod Villagomez with us here. It's our fantasy NASCAR show for In Between Media. Guys, let's get ready for the 2022 season. How's it going?
Elliot, I'm absolutely pumped to be back with you guys here on the new season of the show. Rod joins us as a co-host here in 2022. Psyched about that. Been a big fan of Rod, not just in the fantasy NASCAR scene, but in the fantasy football scene as well. No Jared Bakaysa today. It looks like he got stuck on the shitter. A little bit of food poisoning for JB. Hopefully we get him back here next episode in 2 weeks here. But super excited about everything we got going on here at the Backroad. New theme song coming to us live from Barberside. They're an up-and-coming band here in Central PA, so happy to get them on the show a little bit. And, man, just happy to have racing back. Rod, how you doing today, brother?
I am stoked to be joining the family. I'm stoked to be on this show as a semi-regular co-host. And, man, I'm telling you, I love you guys. I loved being on the show with you guys last season. And for you guys to open it up and let me in, I'm really excited. And like I said, like Seth said, I'm ready to go racing. Like, I can't wait for this already to start. We caught our breath for just a split second from the Super Bowl, but because we are gluttons for punishment, we charge on in the NASCAR space.
Yes, we do.
For sure. All right, so this is our 2022 season preview episode of sorts. And sorry to not have Jared here, but we can do without the Kyle Busch talk for a little bit. I'm sure we'll bring him up later as we talk about it. But before we look ahead to the Daytona 500, let's talk about the Clash. We raced. Just think about this for a minute. We were racing Cup Series cars inside a track inside the LA Coliseum. Imagine going back in time even 2 years and saying that happened. That was nuts. What did you guys think of the Clash? Seth, we'll start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to start this segment out with our in the rear view.
My fault there, Seth. Thanks for queuing up our very nice
video. Absolutely. Hey, we're first time live here with you boys, so going to be some hiccups along the way. Appreciate everyone tuning in for the ride. Overall, man, I mean, the Clash was a lot of fun. I think it was a great event. It was everyone in the audience seemed to be enjoying it. Racing out in Los Angeles, that's something you don't get to see too much. Ice Cube on the scene, baby. So overall, I really enjoyed it. Kind of a letdown with some of the next gen cars and the failures there technically, but overall I don't think we should take too much from it from a NASCAR perspective. You're not going to get on a track with very little to no banking and a quarter-mile track as well, but overall awesome time, man.
It was crazy to see just how you went from an idea to having it happen in front of you. You know what I'm saying? Like when you thought, hey, we're going to do this in the Coliseum, and everyone was like, okay, yeah, how's that going to look? And then all of a sudden you saw it. It was beautiful. Like that track was a beautiful track. That whole scene was a beautiful scene. And when you run those cars on that track, I mean, look, you got a lot of folks that you didn't even know their names. Like, just like, was it Yaley was saying, not Yaley, Haley was saying the whole time. He's like, well, nobody knows my name. And here they are learning their names. Yeah. But I mean, again, just watching the evolution of it all happen and then seeing the cars for the first time on the track, I'm surprised they handled as well as they did. And in fact, what surprised me the most was how much it held up to the beating and the banging of that short track. I mean, we saw obviously what the end limit was as far as how much damage it could take. But as far as some of the stuff that we were watching, the beating, the banging, that would have cut a tire last season. But these guys, they were doing some serious rubbing and came away clean on the other end.
Yeah, the new composite bodies on the next-gen car are awesome. And a lot of drivers said the older car could not have handled that racetrack, but the newer car certainly did. And, yeah, I have to echo your guys' thoughts. Don't take too much stock from it. At the end of the day, it was a gimmick race. I thought that the main event was going to be a lot more similar to that last chance qualifier where, Ty Dillon was bulldozing through everybody. There were a lot of different wrecks. Basically, everybody had a lot of contact. But I think that a clean race, honestly, was probably better. Because, it kind of reminds you, I don't know if you guys remember the Truck Series race from Knoxville last season that they did on dirt. that it just kind of degraded into a shit show of cautions every 2 laps,
Mm-hmm.
and almost became more of an embarrassment. So it's probably a good thing that the main event was not like that Knoxville race, and the last chance qualifier, and really degraded like that. All right, any final thoughts with the Clash here before we move on?
I hope they do it again. Are you guys hoping they send them back to LA here in 2023?
I actually want to see it as a traveling type show. Like I wouldn't, because if they can throw a track down in that capacity and that, quality, I wouldn't mind seeing them kind of take it around. I know there's people that want it back in Daytona, but I'm okay if they do it in another Coliseum or another football stadium, for next year or further down the road.
Let's bring them to Beaver Stadium. How about that? Get them out in Happy Valley. I mean, it's much bigger than the Coliseum.
Yeah, something that I saw were a lot of people posting different stadiums and things like that. Something I didn't realize is the LA Coliseum is longer inside than a lot of these other stadiums. So even if you saw some things in the U.S. or even if you wanted to try to take it overseas, these stadiums are a lot shorter and you couldn't fit the same kind of track in there. So I think the NASCAR is going to take it elsewhere. I don't think it comes back to Daytona for quite a long time. I think they're definitely looking at an international angle, possibly as early as next year. Just a matter of where they can go. I'm sure they'll figure that out pretty easily.
Yeah, good call.
All right, so we've looked back at the Clash. Let's look ahead to the 2022 season. We've ranked every driver in the Daytona 500 entry list field in our next segment called Tire Tiers. So as you can see, what the 4 of us did is we went through all of the drivers on the Daytona 500 entry list, and we ranked them in order into different tiers of 6 drivers. And so combined, here were our rankings. We'll start with tier number 1. Kyle Larson, of course, the 2021 champion, is first there. Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott, Martin Truex Jr., Kevin Harvick, and Joey Logano make up the top 6. Rod, we'll start with you. Give us some thoughts on these first 6 drivers here.
I mean, obviously you can't undersell what Larson did last season. He literally won everything and could not really be beaten. And it was his championship to lose almost from the get-go. So obviously if you're going to rank drivers, he's still at the top. I mean, he hasn't proven otherwise this season that he shouldn't belong there. Although I will say, and look, you can't really say that we said we weren't judging off of the Clash, but you did not see Larson go as heavy as you probably would have wanted him to out of the gates in that car. But again, they don't have a whole lot of backups. They're not ready for this yet. So maybe you don't want to tear the car up before you even get a chance to drive it. So Larson may have been holding back. Harvick, I had Harvick in the second place. I have a feeling this Harvick's, because look, I know I'm rationally just irrational, but Harvick to me spells like this is it. I feel like this is it. Either this season or next season could be Harvick's last, depending on how he feels in this next gen car. He's not young anymore. I mean, I know he's as old as I am, right around that. And I know that I don't want to sit in a car for 4 hours that I don't like. I don't want to sit in a car for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
That I don't like. So I mean, that's to me, I think Harvick's going to win this because he wants to go out on top. So I had him higher, but I mean, the rest of them, you obviously know that these are the echelon, the top echelon, and you saw it even in the Clash. Guys like Busch and Logano rising to the top. So yeah, I mean, this first tier, I don't know that there's too many arguments you can make that none of them belong up there.
Yeah, I agree with you. Here on the back road, we like to refer to this top tier as our driver ones, kind of like in fantasy football, your QB ones, your RB ones. This is kind of our driver 1 tier here. And if I'm doing a redraft league or even a dynasty league for NASCAR, there's a lot of leagues being done on Excel. Fantrax is kind of getting into the scene now too. So I know there are some more redraft leagues occurring. But these are the guys you want leading your team. Obviously, we talked about Larson. Denny Hamlin, despite not winning a lot last year, still led, over 1,000 laps. It was a great season for him. Chase Elliott, maybe a little disappointing off the, season championship, but coming back, he still had a strong 2021. Truex, multiple wins once again here in 2020. So I think overall it's going to be a great season for all these guys. But if I'm looking at one of these driver ones here in particular, I think it's Joey Logano. And you guys know I've never been a huge Joey Logano fan personally, but I think he's getting undervalued a little bit here. If I can't, if I'm in a redraft and I get to pick my pick position, I either want the 101 or the 102 to go after Hamlin or Kyle Larson. But if not, I want the 106, man, or the 105. Joey Logano, we saw him win the Clash. And again, I know that's a gimmicky race. We talked about that. But, so is Bristol Dirt coming up here in just a couple weeks. So is Auto Club kind of coming back out of the shadows a little bit here next week as well. So, he's been a top 8 driver at Daytona. He has 2 wins in the last 3 years at Las Vegas. So both tracks coming up, we know he's going to be good. And overall, I just think that 6th spot, like that's a sweet spot to be in for him. I think he's going to have a good year coming back off a disappointing one last year.
Yeah, I definitely have some faith in Logano too, but I think people are down on him mostly because he only got the 1 win last year and it was at Bristol Dirt.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in terms of Tier 1 here, I really don't have arguments either. It's fitting that the top 4 were last year's championship 4. I have no argument with that. I actually had Kevin Harvick in tier number 2. I just don't know that I still trust Stewart-Haas Racing enough after just an abysmal year for that team last year. But with a guy with the talent of Kevin Harvick, I don't really have any arguments for him being in tier 1 either. All right, so moving on to tier number 2 now. We had Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney, William Byron, Kurt Busch, Alex Bowman, and Christopher Bell. Seth, this time we'll start off with you. Tier 2 thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, getting used to Kurt Busch in the 45 is going to take a little getting used to. But, overall, these are the guys that are super solid. William Byron to Kurt Busch, Bowman, Chris Bell, like those are all, I think, driver 2s. I think arguments can be made for Ryan Blaney and Kyle Busch to be in that driver tier 1. I actually had Ryan Blaney, I think, ranked 6 overall coming into this. And I think, Elliot, you were up there as well. But Blaney, just such a solid season last year. Top 6 in average finish, top 7th in laps led, top 7 in top 5s. So just an overall strong season for him. And I know Kyle Busch, I think we all kind of get a little Kyle Busch fatigue, especially on this show with Jared hyping up so much. But, still 22 top 10s for him last season, 334 laps led. I think that's probably the biggest thing is people see the laps led for Kyle Busch last season in the 300s compared to Truex's 865, Denny Hamlin's 1500, and they see him as a tier below. And I get that. They definitely need to figure out some things on this team. But if there's one guy who can wheel here, I think it's Kyle Busch. So I love those top 2 probably the most. And then the rest of them I think are just really solid drivers.
Yeah, so for me, when I looked at Kyle Busch and I was looking at him coming into the Clash too, you got to figure this guy, He can win in anything you put him in, right? And again, he went out and proved in the Clash that he definitely has a handle on this next gen car, and he was not afraid to drive it. Like that was a lot of these other guys felt like they were just afraid to tear up their car. They were afraid to drive. They were afraid to kind of take the free test that NASCAR was giving them in this car. But Kyle wasn't, and Kyle actually drove the wheels off of the thing. And I feel like he actually made a case for why he's going to be really good, which is why I had him in 3rd place coming into this ranking. I had him up in tier 1 because I feel like this season, if there's a season that anybody is suited to do well and improve upon even last season, it's Kyle Busch, given that this is all brand new equipment to everybody, right? We're ranking all this stuff off of last season. The biggest elephant in the room is the fact that we have no clue what this season's going to look like with these next gen cars. I mean, drivers that we know and love could come out looking like trash. And we saw that in the Clash too, where some of them just couldn't get a handle on the car. So some of these new kids who have no clue what they're doing and not necessarily what they're doing, but they don't know what the old way was. So they're just coming in fresh, could have a leg up as well. So, but Kyle Busch, I definitely had a little bit higher. And, you have a couple of the Hendrick drivers in there, which we already know that Hendrick reigns supreme in NASCAR. So many top 5s, so many top 10s in that tier 2 that, any of those drivers could make a great number 2 driver 2 for you.
Right. That's a good point with the next gen car. It is the great equalizer and potentially the best season ever to be a rookie or best season in a long time. Mm-hmm. But yeah, these are some pretty solid tier 2 drivers. If you watched the show last year, you should know what's about to happen. I'm going to give you some Alex Bowman thoughts on my particular favorite driver. So we got to focus on him for just a second. Very good 2021 for Bowman. He had 4 victories, but the season that I look at as a pretty direct comparison to what I think could be coming for Bowman, we're going to go back to 2003 when Ryan Newman in the number 12 car, he had 8 wins that season, but was very inconsistent. He was really never in the title hunt. Alex Bowman, I think, was joint second in the Cup Series in wins last year. And even for me, there was not one week where I thought this guy could win the championship. And you look at Newman's career after that, he never won more than 2 races in a year after that, and 10 of his 18 seasons after that, assuming that he's done full-time in the Cup Series, were winless. So as a Bowman fan, that kind of worries me, but I think that's probably the most direct comparison that you have to have at the moment. That, there's wins to be had here, as I'll bring up in some of these lower tiers. I don't think Larson wins 10, and I don't think Bowman wins 4 this year. But overall, these guys are in tier 2 for a reason. You can make the argument that the 18 and the 12 are, tier 1.5, let's say. But I think the tier 2 is a pretty solid place to be.
I love that turn, man. I love that first turn. If I could sit, have that 106 overall and then the 201, walk out of there with like a Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, Rowdy, like that looks like a great combo. Sorry. I love that turn.
That'd be a much better top 2 than, say, if you had Larson and then ended up with Bowman,
Yeah. Personally, I think it would be.
All right, let's jump ahead to tier 3 here. We've got Tyler Reddick, Brad Keselowski, Austin Dillon, Austin Cindric, Daniel Suarez, and Chase Briscoe. And I'll start with some thoughts on these guys. Mostly these first 2 guys that I think are trending in opposite directions. I think that Tyler Reddick is going to be the next driver to get his first Cup win. He's just shown so much poise. He's shown so much talent, even in a car that's not necessarily top echelon at Richard Childress Racing. But they've made improvements. And they were the first, I don't know if it was the first Chevy team or the first team overall to start working on the next gen car. That could be a big advantage early as teams are still trying to figure it out. RCR has had it longer than anyone else. I think that Reddick gets to victory lane early, and I don't know that Keselowski sees victory lane in that 6 car. I just talked about Ryan Newman. I don't think he'd won a race in 2 or 3 years in that 6 car, hadn't made the playoffs in 2 or 3 years. In fact, I don't think he won it all in the 6 car. But so the point is, I think that Keselowski long-term is going to make that team better. This year, I don't think it quite works out. And I know that we don't want to use the Clash as a measuring stick, but Keselowski looked terrible in both of his races in the Clash. He was never a factor.
He's running behind Landon Castle at times, too.
Yeah. So if you're going to take anything from that, it's that maybe there's a bit of worry in that number 6 camp.
Yeah. So I'm not thinking that he's going to win. He's going to win. I think he's going to win at least one. I'm not saying he's going to be inconsistent all season long, but I think ownership has gone a long way, too, in making him want to drive better for that team because eventually, this is going to be his team, I'm sure, more than just him driving and owning. He's setting himself up for his post-driving retire, and I think he's going to want to come out and show that his team's going to be powerful, right? And what better way to do it than to lead from the front and to drive from the front. So, I'm going to give Keselowski at least 1 win. I did because I set that up in a bet earlier this season to at least have a win for Keselowski.
Yeah.
But again, to me, I think that he's a little high in tier 3. I don't know that there's going to be the consistent finishes for him. I feel like he's going to get a couple of wins, but I don't feel like there's going to be a consistent finish for him. But I like your take on Reddick. I really do. Reddick, to me, he was hanging around so many races, just a lot of bad luck last season in that 8 car. He got caught up in some bad situations where he wrecked out of some races, some bad pit calls here and there, but he seemed to always be somewhere in the mix until he wasn't. And that's tough. So hopefully this season he can work through some stuff and pull himself up. Cause I feel like he could be a tier 2 driver just as easily as he is in the top 3. I have him at the very top of tier 3, just like it says there. So that matches my rankings, but yeah, I'm okay with that. So
yeah, I'm with you guys on Reddick. I think he's the clear separator here in tier 3, 16 top 10 finishes here last season. That is way more than anyone in tier 3 or below that. Just a really bad start for him last year at a couple of these earlier tracks. He's pretty decent at road courses as well. So Tyler Reddick, I think, is the clear separator here. I like Cindric this season. I think that number 2 Penske car is going to do well. I also like Chase Briscoe. They kind of come in together. A little more experience under Chase Briscoe's belt racing full-time last season. But overall, I think those 2 are really good wild cards. They could go either way. The only person I'm not sold on here in tier 3, and I love him as a driver and the company, and that's Daniel Suarez with Trackhouse. I just think we have him a little too high here. I know it's year 2 in that equipment, but only 4 top 10s last season, and most of those came at the very beginning of the season. So I just don't know how much faith I can put into Daniel Suarez. I couldn't see myself picking him over any of these guys in tier 3, and even maybe someone like Chris Buescher. I just don't think I could do that.
All right. Well, you mentioned Buescher. Let's go on to tier 4 now, which I think is the boom or bust tier that we have. I could easily see all 6 of these guys ripping out wins this year. I could see none of the 6 even coming close to a victory. Those 6 guys: Chris Buescher, Bubba Wallace, Eric Almirola, Ross Chastain, Justin Haley, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. I think that there's a lot of upside with these guys, but there's also a lot of downside. We saw Bubba Wallace win a race last year. We saw Almirola win a race last year. Justin Haley's been competitive in college racing, won a race last year with AJ Allmendinger. I think that Chris Buescher is a very talented driver stuck in a ride that's maybe not so great. And if I'm dead wrong about Keselowski and RFK Racing show speed, Chris Buescher is going to be in a very good place and could be a very good cheap pickup early in the season. But these 6 guys are real interesting. Seth, I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on some of these guys.
Yeah, it's no surprise with me. I'm going to kind of stick with the colleague boys, I think, if I'm drafting in this tier. Bubba Wallace interests me a little bit too, just, second year in some Joe Gibbs racing equipment. So I think that's going to be, he'll definitely see an improvement. Got that first W out of the way as well last season. But, I really like Justin Haley in this 31. I'll talk more about, the 16 car later on, but Justin Haley's been sound the last few years in the Xfinity series. He already has, as fluky as it was, a cup win under his belt as well at Daytona. So I don't know. I really like that 31 and the value it could, give your team there. And Ross Chastain in that number 1 car, same deal. I think he probably has better equipment this year than he did last year. And now, he's got a good teammate around him finally. And I just think it's going to be an overall good year for a driver who had 8 top 10s in some, kind of dinky equipment last season. So I'm excited for those guys. You have to think Almirola kind of going out. He'll probably get a W too. But overall, Elliot, I think you hit it kind of on the head there. This is a very hit or miss crowd right here.
Yeah, I'm looking down the road and yeah, Haley to me is intriguing. And if he's around at your pick here in this 4th round, or when you're picking 4th, I would probably take a chance on him more than the other guys. I know that I have the team 23, right? Michael Jordan's team winning more than 1.5 races this season. So, I mean, that gives either Bubba Wallace 2 wins or Wallace and Busch a win apiece. But that's really all I can see them. I mean, again, this is a long season, obviously, and I know that Wallace is going to build off of that, but I don't see him crossing the check, and he's not really shown a whole lot of consistency either. So your boom and bust is right, but I'm going to take a chance on the rookie. We were talking about the best season to be a rookie. This is the best season to be a rookie. And if I'm going to take a chance on a rookie, he showed well in the early parts of that Busch Clash. Again, I know we keep saying don't go back to it, but it's the only thing we've seen them in so far.
Yeah.
So, and he looked comfortable driving, and he looked like he could hang with the top guys, and wasn't scared. And the situation wasn't too big for him. So I'm taking a chance on the rookie.
Couple more quick points on 23-11 before we finish up in this tier. This is the first year in the Cup Series that Bubba Wallace has had a teammate. He was just him in Richard Petty Motorsports, and it was just the 1-car team at 23-11. Not only just a teammate, but a teammate in Kurt Busch that if you look through his entire career since his downfall with Penske Racing and all that, he's made every single team better. And I think that he's going to do that with 23-11. I think here, if you're going to take one bet this NASCAR season, it's Kurt Busch for 1 win. He's good for 1 win a year, every year, regardless of equipment. It's been that way the last few years. So 23-11 is getting at least 1. And they're going to be intriguing. I think Trackhouse will be intriguing too, since we've had those teams there. But we'll move down to tier 5. We'll call this a deep value sort of tier. You're not going to expect anything too flashy from it, but could see some good finishes here or there. We've got Harrison Burton in the 21, Corey LaJoy, Michael McDowell, Cole Custer, Eric Jones, and Ty Dillon. Rod, give me some thoughts on these gentlemen here.
These are the guys that you are going to wring your hands with every single week, because you're going to watch them at the back of the field and wonder when the hell they're going to move up. These 40 cars, it's just last season alone, you saw Eric Jones and then you didn't, right? I mean, it was so frustrating watching these guys run in and out. Now, McDowell, quickest in practice in his run for the Daytona 500, he may show up for the 500 and then disappear for the rest of the season. Of all these guys, I may again take a chance on the rookie. I may take a chance on Lejoy, just because I'm a glutton for punishment. But I want no part of this tier. I would trade the pick if I could, because it's probably the most frustrating tier in all of this draft, because there's no hope past the rookie, past Burton, for me to want to cheer for anything past that. And I know that doesn't help too many people, but I'm just saying, look, if you're going to be stuck picking between Jones and McDowell and Lejoy, pick Lejoy, because at least at some point he may get better.
Yeah. I think you nailed it there, Rod. Harrison Burton's the one that sticks out for me. Just the overall pedigree coming in. It's kind of in the genes for him, I feel like, a little bit. He's had success at Daytona before, 44 top tens in Xfinity over the last 2 seasons as well. I think you put that in with the Wood Brothers car. I think it sets him up for some success. Outside of that, like, I'm kind of like Rod, if I want to take a shot at Corey Lejoy, I guess I will. I don't want anything to do with Cole Custer. I want to touch him with a 10-foot pole, or Eric Jones too. You can throw Mickey Dow out there, for Daytona. Hope you get lucky. Ty Dillon's interesting, I think, a little bit. Elliot, I know you've kind of focused on him a little bit. Are you interested in Ty Dillon or any of these other guys?
Yeah, I have a few points to make here. I have a little more optimism about this tier than you guys did, especially you, Rod. I don't know that all these guys are complete garbage. I will start with what is now called Petty GMS, as GMS, which Maurice Gallagher, they were a really good team in the Truck Series for a few years. They merged together with Petty to make this team with Eric Jones and Ty Dillon. I don't think their equipment is going to be very good. I don't see either of these guys winning races, but we know that Eric Jones has talent. And we know that Ty Dillon has, in the past done some things in the Cup Series. He'll at least be consistent. And despite what we saw in the Clash, he won't necessarily tear your cars up. Could be a big-time learning year for them. And it could be somewhere where we see them succeed in the future. With Cole Custer, again, Stuart Haas was just so bad last year all across the board. I think you kind of have to give him the mulligan or the benefit of the doubt here. But I think this is the year he's got to show something. I mean, he's got the in here because his dad, Joe Custer, has been involved with Haas and Stuart Haas Racing forever. So he got the ride mostly from that. Not that he's not a talented driver, but he's going to have to show something, or else some of this talent that's coming up the pipe here might knock him out of that 41 car, especially for the fact that it's still really an unsponsored car. He's got, he had Dixie Vodka on for a couple of races last year. Otherwise, this is just a Haas-backed car. And if you can get somebody to bring in money that'll get you even the same, 25th place points finish, sorry, Cole, I think you're probably kicked out of there. And another quick point, Corey Lejoy, I think he's a talented driver, but I'm not entirely sure about Spire Motorsports. Their big plan when they started was, we're looking toward the next-gen car. We're going to be good with the next-gen car. And then I think with their second car, they either sold the charter, or they've been going back and forth with charters, things like that. So I'm still not sure that they're in it to be a winning race team and not just to run it as a business. So this is going to be the year where we really find that out with Spire Motorsports.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
On to tiers number 6 and 7 now. A quick disclaimer, not all of these cars and not all of these drivers are going to race full-time this year, in case you were unaware. So these aren't necessarily guys that you want to pick up long-term, because they're going to be different drivers, or you may go in one week and say, hey, this car's not on the entry list. What happened? Oh, it was only a Daytona car, or it's only running in certain races. But with tier number 6, we have Cody Ware, Todd Gilliland, Daniel Hemrick, Landon Castle, BJ McLeod, and Greg Biffle, who is back with a team called NY Racing in that number 44.
Baby.
They've been rumored to have been entering the Daytona 500 for a few years. Last year in the preseason, they said, okay, we're running the full schedule. Let's go. And they didn't show up for a single race. But it's definitely cool to see them in. They've got backing from, I think it's Grambling State University and some HBCUs like that. He's going to need to qualify into the race. It'd be so cool to see the Biff back in the 500 there. The point that I'll make, I guess, starting off is with Rick Ware Racing. Last year, they had 4 cars. All of them were terrible for most of the season. This year, they've scaled back. Cody Ware in the 51, I think, is their only consistent full-time car.
Yeah.
And again, I'm going to point to the Clash, even though we don't want to take it seriously. Cody Ware ran well in that race.
Best he's ever ran in probably his life, honestly, in Cup at least.
At least comparatively for what he's ran. So this is almost interesting to me with this next-gen car. is Rick Ware Racing not going to be a joke this year? I don't know if that's where you guys want to start, but Seth, we'll fire it off to you first with the guys in Tier 6.
That's got to be one of the biggest mysteries like going on right now. Like, I don't know what prop bets there are for Cody Ware out there this year, but I'd be really like inclined to maybe bet an over just to see what happens with those odds. But man, I don't know about Rick Ware Racing. There's so many question marks. He had some mental health issues last year as well. Even like getting in wrecks with teammates, and we heard, some radio transpondence about, him just not being, mentally well for being in the car. So a lot of question marks. He ran great at the Clash. It was really cool to see. I have my fingers crossed for them though. But if I'm looking in this tier, there's one driver, one car that I'm picking above the rest, and probably even above Cole Custer. And that's the 16 car. And I know Daniel Hemrick is not full-time, but he's going to be swapping in and out with AJ Allmendinger, who is a ringer at these road courses, and Noah Gragson, who, Noah Gragson's a little bit of a question mark here in the Cup Series, but, still some high pedigree in the Xfinity Series. But I just see the 16 car as being kind of the diamond in the rough here. I'll talk a little bit more about it later, but, Hemrick has over 10,000 laps ran here in the Cup Series. So he has the experience to get it done. I like Dinger, what he's kind of been able to do, and it's colleague racing. It's just a good program. So they're probably the one I'm looking at, even if I have to do a little waiver wire transaction, dropping Hemrick, hoping I get Dinger. I'm willing to do that, and I think gamble with some of these other guys like Gilliland.
Give me all the Biffle. I haven't seen him in so long. Like I want this guy to succeed. Like I saw his name pop up and I thought he's got to have a son, right? I mean, or some sort of nephew or a cousin or a third removed aunt or uncle. I don't know. But to me, it was like with Greg Biffle. Yeah, give me back Greg Biffle. I'm okay with him. I mean, he wasn't a phenomenal race winner, but the guy had some potential in a lot of top fives over the course of his career. He had 12 in 2012, fell off the cliff after that, but he was in the top 10 a lot, 21 that year too. 19 a couple of years before. So, perennial top 10 run guy. And if he can continue to do that for you from the sixth spot, from the sixth tier in your sixth pick, I mean, that's value right there.
Yeah, the interesting thing, again, is just how often is this team going to run? Is he even going to be able to make it into the Daytona 500? What kind of deal is that going to be? So that's interesting to see. But we know that this NY Racing has a good and consistent driver. All right, now into Tier 7, our last tier. None of these cars and or drivers are full-time this season, at least not as of yet. So, again, proceed with caution. Noah Gragson in the 62, Timmy Hill, David Reagan is in that 15 car, Kaz Gralla in the number 50, Jacques Villeneuve in the 27, and J.J. Yaley in the 55. So still some intriguing names here. Noah Gragson back in the Beard Motorsports car. If you remember, Brendan gone for maybe 4 or 5 years, ran that car just at the restrictor plates. Gragson tried to make the Daytona 500 in this car last year, and it didn't work. It could be an intriguing pickup late, but Beard has never run the next-gen car. They are only really planning on this race, so the restrictor plate races. I don't know that it's worth going for him despite the talent there. If you're going to go with Gragson, pick him up for his races that he'll have in the 16 car, not for this one in the 62. Kaz Gralla in the Money Team car, another team that had been rumored to be showing up for a few years. But their closest affiliation they have right now is they have some of the old Starcom racing crewmen and sponsors and things like that. So despite the attachment of Mayweather's name, I would expect this more to run like that 00 that Quinn Houff had, despite the fact that Gralla is a better driver. It's a much better looking car than most of those 00s, even though it's quirky. I really like the paint scheme.
He's the one. He's the one on this tier that I would take a shot at. I don't know why. Yep. I don't know if it's just Floyd Money Mayweather being a part of it, or that I actually like Kaz Gralla as a driver. But he's probably the one I'm taking a shot at. I don't know why. I just love him.
Yeah, and I think that this 50-team long-term is interesting, too. Is Mayweather really serious about pumping cash into this team? Are they going to get some better affiliations
here? He's got it, baby. We know he's got it.
Oh, yeah. And then just one more point from me from these Tier 7 guys. Jacques Villeneuve in the 27. I forget exactly what the team is called, if it's Hezmann's Racing or something like that. Loris Hezmann's is a road course foreign racing specialist. They're running a few races. I should have looked this up beforehand. I don't remember if they're racing full-time. I know Jacques Villeneuve is not. But, he's a guy, a former F1 champ, trying to make the Daytona 500. Not that I think he'll run well, even if he makes the race, but certainly cool to see him back in NASCAR. I remember he would race usually the one-offs up at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal in the Xfinity Series, but good to see him back around. Any thoughts on Tier 7 from you guys? Rod, we'll go to you and then go back to Seth if we need to.
So this is my superstitious pick right here because my number is 15 across the board. Like I was born on the 15th. My wife was born on the 15th. We were married on the 15th. 15 car holds a little special something to me because I race it in my NASCAR games all the time too. So Reagan for me in the 15 is good. But look, talk about Mayweather. All he needs to do is go fight, right? If he needs some money. So yeah, just wants to pump some money into the team. He'll just go and box and beat somebody up and then come back and pump it into the thing. So I do like that 50 car. I'm intrigued because again, these athletes with money that come into the sport, you know, Jordan and all these guys, what do they actually bring to the table other than their name, and how serious are they? And we've seen that Jordan is pretty serious. So now is you know, Mayweather going to be that serious as well?
I think you nailed it there, Rod. I'm intrigued. I'm at least intrigued with the rest of these teams. You know, I think you're a little intrigued with Jock, kind of like Elliot pointed out. He's a cool story. But overall, yeah, if I have to take a shot on one of these guys, it's definitely that 50 car. Timmy Hill, man. Like that dude's just been hanging around at the bottom of the barrel for years. He reminds me of like Alex Bowman before he got picked up by Hendricks a little bit. I mean, not obviously as good of a driver probably, but he's a good iRacer. So Timmy Hill's kind of interesting, I guess.
Yeah, the Timmy Hill, Alex Bowman type of deal. That reminds me of somebody who we're not bringing up in this, which is Ryan Preece, who ran in the 37 for JTG Jordy last year. Yeah. That ride slows down because he was unchartered. But he's the Stewart Haas Racing, their backup driver, essentially. He's going to run a handful of cup races. He ran in that 15 car in the Clash. So I think that he's your guy who's going to take over for Almirola next year. Not a fantasy relevant name for this year, but just the guy I wanted to mention as he's going to be sort of that next Bowman type of deal. He's going to get
a good driver. He's a good driver. Yeah. I like that call. Good call, Elliot.
All right. So there are our debut tire tiers. I'm not anticipating that we'll do a full field tier at any point in the rest of the year. Maybe we will, maybe we won't, but we'll be sure to keep you updated on who we have as the most fantasy relevant guys. All right. Before we go to our next segment, Rod, I know that it was sometime in the next few minutes here, you'll have to dip out. I think this is probably a good exit, getting close to your hard out time here, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Sorry, got to go pick the kids up from their musical appointments.
Hey, that's all right, Rod. As long as next podcast you're back, make sure what you're eating. You know, don't pull a Jared on us here. Make sure what you're eating is good. No food poisoning for us next time. You're all good, buddy.
All right, I'll make sure to bring the Busch Light for everybody too.
I appreciate that, brother. I appreciate that. Rod, awesome having you on here in the debut episode, man. Excited to get you back here in a little bit. Elliot, what do you say we shake things up, man? Head into some down-home DFS.
Sounds great. Let's go.
I'm just going to say, like, shout out to our video guy, Third and Short, man. Like, he put in the work with, you know, the new graphic, everything else we have going on here at the Backroad. So pumped up about that. But, man, that was a nice drop coming in. That got me ready to go, Elliot.
Oh, yeah. Nice little down-home DFS. Good name. Fits with the show for sure. Something interesting, though, about this segment, we went to look for the pricing on DraftKings, and we didn't find anything. Normally, they would have your odds and your typical bookmaking deals up. Didn't happen. But, Seth, you still got some tips here for our viewers as to what they should do heading into this Daytona 500.
Yeah, I was honestly a little surprised going in, you know, yesterday not seeing the pricing out because sometimes with these bigger events, they almost get them out sometimes 2 weeks in advance. They especially do that with PGA events like the Masters and such. So a little surprising there, but overall, there's still a lot of good strategy to talk about with DraftKings, FanDuel, whatever you guys are playing on. And, you know, I think we should start it here, Elliot. Last year was really my first year jumping straight into the DFS scene. You and I, we played fantasy NASCAR, you know, really the greater half of the last decade. And DraftKings, FanDuel is kind of a different beast. And, you know, I think the big thing you've got to keep in mind here, not only with Daytona 500 coming up, but just in general this season, is stack the back. And what that means is the big thing here, whether you're playing FanDuel or DraftKings, is those differential points. Coming from the back, if you start in 30th and you finish in 20th, you get 10 extra DK points or FanDuel points towards your total. But if you start in first and you finish in 30th, you're going to get some negative points out there as well. So, that's something to keep in mind. The way I've seen it done, pretty standardly throughout the injury, if you're trying to be on top of that leaderboard, you want to have 1 to 2 guys in your top 15, starting in that top 15. So these are those tier 1, tier 2 drivers we talked about who are likely going to qualify well, start up front. And then you want to have 4 or 5 of those guys outside the top 20. And don't be afraid to throw, 2 or 3 guys outside the top 30. There's always 1 or 2 guys who don't qualify well. Maybe you have to start from the rear as well. So keep your eyes on those. But, realistically, don't be afraid to take some of these shots. Elliot, we talked about these guys like Corey LaJoy, Ty Dillon, who could kind of be wild cards here. Those are good guys to target here in DraftKings this week.
Yeah, I think those are some good names. And that is interesting, too. I didn't know this until about halfway through last year, is that you can get the extra points with a guy starting from the back coming forward. And that's perhaps no bigger than at a place like the Daytona 500 with the weird qualifying strategies and the dual races to set everything up. You could have a really good driver end up starting like 35th in this race. Or we talked about Greg Biffle, a guy who maybe in a crappy car has good pedigree. If he starts 40th in this race, even just making it through all the crashes and running half decent, he can end up with, 12th place finish, which, does not look all that great on paper, but you add in those differential points. If you stack the back like that, puts you in really good shape.
Yeah, Greg Biffle is actually a really good name. He can make this field. I'll throw a couple names out there. We don't know the pricing yet. We don't know the qualifying order. So that's obviously going to impact things. But if you are, reservist, you can reserve seats right now in some DraftKings lobbies, in some FanDuel lobbies. So reserve those seats. Here are some names to pay attention to. If there is a name I'm paying up for this week, even if he's towards the top of the starting grid, it's Denny Hamlin. 4 straight top 5 finishes at the 500. Best average finish in the last 10 races outside Justin Haley at Daytona. Elliot, do you see any concerns for Denny Hamlin? I know he didn't run very well in the Clash, but I think I'm back in on him even with the next-gen car.
Yeah, I think that Denny Hamlin has to be the favorite for the Daytona 500. He's been probably the best running driver at Daytona since we saw my old guy Dale Earnhardt Jr. retire. Super consistent at all the super speedways. He's won 3 Daytona 500s in the last 6 years. And I think that new car, old car, whatever car, I think Denny Hamlin is going to go out there and surely give it his best shot, whether he puts it in victory lane or not.
I want to talk about now the team that he actually owns, Bubba Wallace. He's another interesting name here. If there's one track that Bubba has a lot of success on, it is at Daytona. In 8 of his 9 races, he's been inside that top 17. I'm expecting him to maybe qualify outside the top 20, likely with those duels. So I think he's someone, if he qualifies around the 24, 25 range, I'm willing to put some money in on him and get him in my lineup.
Yeah, the last few restrictor plate races, he's run up front, and he won the most recent restrictor plate race we had in the Cup Series at Talladega, even though it was helped a little bit by the rain. It's not as if it was some sort of Mickey Mouse rain win. He was leading, and he was running up front, and the rain just happened to come down. So he's got to be a guy you consider as well. Yeah,
and I think 2 leverage plays to round it out here that I'm looking at. We talked about him a little bit earlier. Corey LaJoy. In his last 6 races, he's been top 20 in all of them at Daytona, and then top 3 in 10 of his 6 races as well. And he's a guy probably going to be starting, 25 plus in this one. He's going to get you those diff points, get you up there. And then how about Justin Haley as well? I mean, he's probably going to be highly owned. We'll have to check out the rostership percentages as it gets closer here. But, overall, we know he has that one win a couple years ago. I think that was 2019 maybe when he got that win.
Yep, 2019 summer race. That was kind of a Mickey Mouse rain win. He was able to stay out front, not pitting. Kurt Busch and Landon Castle, I think, came down pit road. Justin Haley didn't, and they were able to grab that victory.
Yeah, and even outside that, comes back in 2020, he was 13th in the 500, and then last year in the summer race, he was top 6. So I think Justin Haley, he's probably going to be starting about mid-20, maybe low teens, and he's a guy who could have a top 10 finish. So with those diff points like Corey LaJoy, Justin Haley, those are guys I'm looking to stack together in a lineup. And, we heard a little bit from Rod earlier. Practices times have been in for earlier in this week. McDowell's been running towards the front of the pack, so he might be another one I'm willing to take a dart throw at. Only thing with him is you have to think coming off the victory last season, his rostership percentage will be up.
Right, and with those two other guys you mentioned too, I think that if you're going to pick up Corey Lejoy for a race, it's going to be these kind of races. I'm pretty sure he was in the top 10 in the summer race at Daytona last year. It's a race they can run well at. And I do like Justin Haley. I do like Colleague as a sleeper pickup of sorts. But you also have to be aware of a potential bust potential for him. It's a team that has not been full-time in the Cup Series before. And even though Haley for Daytona is looking pretty good, he's won plenty of times in the Xfinity Series as well as that Cup win on restrictor plate tracks. But if in terms of a longer-term pickup, he's never won in his career outside of a restrictor plate track, which is crazy to think of because he's a guy you've thought of as multiple wins, championship contender, all his wins, Daytona, Talladega. So we'll have to see.
That is crazy.
Cross that bridge.
He's been close. He's been very close. Like there's been a couple of those road courses in the Xfinity Series kind of just missed out, as well as some of those, those 1.5-mile tracks as well. But no, that's a good point there. That's a good point there, Elliot.
All right, so when those prices do come out on your particular fantasy website, go ahead and make your bets and take all of our advice because all of it's going to hit for sure.
Yeah, I'm going to say last thing on that. We talk a lot about this in our Discord server, the In-Between family. We have a lot of fantasy NASCAR advice coming in there. I'll post my lineups in there. I'm sure Rod will post his lineups as well. We'll have overall general advice from you as well, Elliot. So if you guys haven't signed up for the In-Between family over there, you can get in our Discord and our Facebook group right now for free. So get in there, whether you're interested in NASCAR, fantasy football, UFC, golf, whatever advice you guys need, we're there. Just a cool thing to kind of throw out there for audience as we head into the racing season. I know we already have some awesome race fans in that chat, but it'd be awesome to get even a couple more.
Yeah, that has been super fun, and I'm going to try to be more involved as the season is ramped up in there. In-Between family, go ahead and hop in, and it'll be fun. All right, so we're down to our final two segments of the show for this debut episode. Next up, Horizon Forecast.
Hey, Michael, it was only 20% chance of rain. I think we got all 20.
Oh, I love that bumper. Heck of a quote there from Ray Dunlap, the old Truck Series reporter.
Yeah.
Pretty funny there. Yeah, so we're hoping for no rain, first of all, but we quickly forecast before we get into Horizon Forecast. Last couple Daytona 500s have had rain delays. No rain. Regardless.
Remember the jet dryer? What was that, like almost 10, 12 years ago at this point?
Yeah, that was 2012 was the jet dryer. I remember staying up for that whole rain delay and that whole thing. Remember we thought Dave Blaney was going to win the Daytona 500 and turn 3 literally caught on fire and we were racing 2 hours later. Both of those things just insane.
Yes, yep.
But all right, so we've talked a lot about the Daytona 500. We can sprinkle in a little more here. But looking ahead also, we've got Auto Club Speedway for the first time since pre-pandemic 2020. Some of the things we have to look at here, how's the next-gen car going to perform in these first true endurance tests, both of them pretty long races? The return to Auto Club, they had planned on turning it into a short track. That still is potentially in the plans, but now, maybe not. They may not end up doing it. And we'll have to make our picks here as well before we end the show as to who is going to get the win at Daytona. I'm perfectly fine with Auto Club as it is right now. If you end up deciding that you want to turn it into a short track, or if that California land value that you can sell half of the racetrack to put, housing or whatever the hell you want to put there and make it a short track, that's fine. I think that's why we lost Chicagoland Speedway. I think that's just going to be turned into housing or something like that. So unfortunate reality that we have, but my other thought with Auto Club, Alex Bowman, the most recent race winner there. He's got the curse of, Chicagoland I just mentioned. Auto Club, we haven't raced there for 2 years after he's won there. Let those curses be damned. I'm totally fine with another Bowman win at Auto Club, regardless of its results to the racetrack. All right, Seth, I'll let you get to your notes here. I've rambled on long enough.
No, I mean, this was so weird to see this kind of back on the schedule again. And I like Auto Club. I think it's kind of a diamond in the rough track. But it is kind of a little weird to see it back on the slate after 2 years and not seeing the whole short track thing that we were hearing about so much over the last couple of years. But I think this makes a lot of the veteran drivers a little more appealing here in the beginning of the season. Kurt Busch has a couple wins in this race. Kevin Harvick, Kyle Larson, Brad Keselowski, Truex, and then Rowdy has won 3 of these things. So I think that's kind of upping the value. Like that's why I had Rowdy ranked just outside my top 6 heading into the 500. I just think, I think it's going to be one of these veterans, whether it's Kyle Busch or Kyle Larson. I'm going to bet on the Kyle, I think, heading into this. Just a huge advantage overall. And Man, I actually really like the Daytona road course too, so I'm a little bummed out about that.
I thought the Daytona road course was nice too, but I think that we just have too many road courses on the schedule right now. I think 2 was too few. I'm glad that we added more other than Sonoma and Watkins Glen, but I don't think we need Sonoma and the Glen and the Indianapolis Roval and COTA and the Daytona road course. At some point, it just gets to be a little too much. So I'm fine with Daytona road course being the sacrificial lamb of sorts.
I'm not. I'm glad you are, because I'm not, man. I would honestly, I would take I would even take the Roval out. Honestly, like I know people love the Roval, but I don't know, man. Something about Daytona road course, especially like race 2 last season was such a fun race with Chris Bell competing right at the end of it. So I don't know. I'm a little bummed.
Yeah, I think it's a good track. I think it's a notoriously popular track, running the Rolex 24 there, of course, the end of January.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it's gone forever. I think
Yeah.
that we can easily, rotate it in and out. I don't want to stay on the Indianapolis road course forever either. I think we need to go back to the oval there, but that race isn't until the summer. I'm sure we'll have a more extended discussion on that at that time. But all right, so the first 2 races are coming up. We're going to do now our last segment called Draft or Pass.
Draft or pass, baby. Let's go.
5 now, quarter, 5, 75, sold your way, 65
That's
and a
pretty
half.
cool.
21, Andy Rock, 21, Rockstar,
Who doesn't love an old auctioneer on a Tuesday evening? Draft or pass, buy or sell, whatever you want to call it. Seth, who are you drafting? Who are you passing on for the first couple weeks?
Real quickly, in that drop, did that guy not look like the auctioneer? Did he not look like Rob McElhaney from Always Sunny?
I didn't pay enough attention to his face, honestly. I'll have to give a closer look when we do this next
I
episode.
literally had to double take it when I first saw that video last week. I was like, is that Rob McElhaney? Are we using a clip from Sony? Sonny, do we have permission for that? But no. So, okay, I'm going to start with my pass here. We've talked about him a little bit earlier today, but Cole Custer, man, I will avoid him at all counts on my team. I kind of liked him last season a little bit, and you know that, Elliot. After the first couple races, he was kind of on a heater, top 13 in average position over the first couple races, and then he kind of just shit the bed. And 9 laps led all last season, 2 top 10s. I'll take all those other tier guys. I take Cody Ware over him. I'll take Daniel Hemrick over him. Hell, I mean, I might take Greg Biffle over him after Rod got me pumped up for him. Honestly,
there's our first hot takes of the season. Taking a Rick Ware racing car over Cole Custer.
Let's go, baby.
Mark that down. My God.
What do you got for us for your pass, Elliot? Is it as hot as mine? Because man, I'm over the Colonel, man. I'm over the Colonel.
I think that it's a relatively hot take, but I'm going to pass on Brad Keselowski this first couple of weeks. I just think that it's going to be more of a learning curve for RFK. I think that this Roush team has not performed well enough. I think that Keselowski, he's almost coming off kind of a down year. He only got that win at Talladega. Yeah. And it's not that he ran badly, but he didn't have a championship caliber season. I think he was knocked out. Was he knocked out in the first round of the playoffs, or did he make it further than I think? I don't remember.
I think he might have made it one. He made it one round. Yeah, he made it one round.
Okay. Yeah, but in any case, and I did this last year with the guy who ended up winning 10 races in the title. I was kind of wanting to hang back on Kyle Larson the first couple weeks, and that really did not turn out well. So I could be dead wrong, but I'm passing on Brad Keselowski until we can see some success, some of that car running up front, just something to give me some hope in him with this RFK racing team.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, RFK, before Keselowski obviously coming into it, they just haven't been great the last few seasons. The Clash was not great, obviously, for Keselowski too. So I completely understand the sell here.
Right. And the last time that Roush had a car, I think in the top 5 or top 10 in points, was way back when Carl Edwards was still there. That's how long it's been.
Yeah. I just think in the tier you can get Keselowski, whether you're playing DraftKings, whether you're playing Redraft, Dynasty, whatever it may be. I just think there's better guys. I think there's more upside from a guy like Austin Cindric, Tyler Reddick especially. That's kind of the tier he's in, and I just think he kind of falls out to it. So he'll get a win. He'll get a win or two, I think, but I don't want to touch him here early in the season. I agree, Elliot.
All right, you want to reveal your draft pick first? Do you want me to go ahead and top mine off first?
Yeah, top her off for us, bud.
All right. Well, of course, you can take this. I'll put on my Ally purple tinted glasses here. I'm taking Alex Bowman for the first couple of races, but I actually have good reasons. It's not just because I'm a fan. With these first two races, the Daytona 500, in each of the last 4 years, Bowman has qualified on the front row, and I believe he was the pole winner last season. So he's got speed there. Hendrick has speed there. With Daytona, it's just a matter of making it through, staying up front, making it through the big ones and all that. I'm going to say this is his year. If he's going to win a Daytona 500, it's going to happen this year. So I'm going to take him. And, of course, last race at Auto Club, he won that. It's a good type of track for him. I think it could be another successful trip there. So, again, I've got my Ally Purple 48 fan tinted glasses on, but I'm taking Bowman first.
Yeah, I think there might be people in that tier 2 that I'm a little more excited about. But I will say this, man. Is there any driver who is, like, just underrated more than Alex Bowman? I see the tweets. I see the Facebook posts, man. I mean, this guy came out and won 4 races last season, ran well the year before, won some races. So just overall, like, he still has so much to prove, which he shouldn't, but he does, and I think he's going to prove himself this season. I think stepping in for Dale Earnhardt Jr., I think that's always a tough task to ask.
Not only that, but then stepping right into Jimmy Johnson's car as he walks out.
Yeah. So kind of a tough hand for Bowman there. But, I mean, if you want a guy who knows how to win races at the end of it, he's got a good crew chief. He's got a good team, obviously on a good overall, Hendrick's organization as well. So I think Bowman, you can't go wrong with me. He's safe. He's one of the safest drivers out there. And he's going to be that no matter what fantasy NASCAR you're playing, whether it be DFS, whether it be season long, whatever it may be. Only thing to keep an eye out for him this week, in particular in DFS, he likes to qualify towards the top of the 500 order. So he might be someone I'm passing on just this week if he does happen to, sit in that pole position or close to it.
Fair enough. All right, so I'm excited about your draft pick here. Let's hear it, and then I've got some points about him too.
Yeah, so I think, let's flash back to simpler times a little bit. What was it? I think it was November of 2021, and Daniel Hemrick never won a race, ends up gutting it out for not just the win at Phoenix, but the Xfinity title. And, that was amazing to see. I think we talked about it a little bit last year on the season finale, but that was a lot of fun to see. And I just think I want to go after this 16 car in the Cup Series. Like I said, Hemrick, he has over 10K laps here in the series. AJ Allmendinger is going to be a ringer on that road course. So if you have a waiver system in your league where you can, consistently swap out these guys, I like it. I like it a lot. Specifically, for DFS too, Hemrick's a guy I think who's going to qualify towards the end of this order. I think he'll be a good play here. Once we get to those road courses, Dinger often, qualifies towards the end, or there's no qualifying too. So he'll kind of start towards the end, and he's going to get you a lot of differential points. So I'm really in on this 16 car. I think they're the diamond in the rough. We talked about them a little bit earlier, but I'm drafting them everywhere I can this season.
Yeah, I'm kind of this is a point that I didn't make when we went through our tire tiers here, but I think that the 16 has to be the most intriguing and perhaps the most exciting entry in the Cup Series this year because it's very unique. It's a car that's going to run well probably, that's in, I don't know if I want to say the upper echelon, but certainly much higher than, a start and park team, which is normally kind of what you would see rotating drivers. It's a car that's going to be good that doesn't have a full-time driver in it. None of these guys are running for Cup Series points this year. They can go out and go balls to the wall and go nuts, and they can colleague racing, can throw things at this car and try new things that even if it doesn't work out well in the 16 car, it could help out that 31 car as well later in the season. It's going to be super exciting, and I think that, we could see all three of these guys eventually end up in full-time Cup Series rides in the future because of this opportunity that they can take to run well and do everything they can. The only thing that I have to worry about is the same problem that everybody else has to worry about, and it's that right now there's really not enough next-gen cars to go around. A lot of these teams in Daytona do not have backup cars for each one of their teams. Even like your Hendrick Motorsports, there's 4 cars down there. I think they've only got 2, maybe 3 backup cars for the entire team. So that's going to be something to worry about. It may kind of affect the way the qualifying order goes in these duels and things like that. People may not go crazy in those. But I think with this 16 car, and that's kind of the mentality of colleague racing as a whole, what do they call them? The trophy hunters or something like that.
Yeah.
That's their mentality. I think they're going to win another race this year, and this 16 car is going to be super duper interesting.
So can I ask you this, Elliot? What happens if colleague racing, they total a car here early in the season? What happens?
Well, I think that an interesting thing is you can really mess up some cars, but they're not really easier to replace. So the way the cars apparently are set up, and I'm going to give a rudimental explanation to this, it is in no way indicative of what it actually is. Someone way smarter with cars can explain it a lot better. But so apparently there's a separate, like a front clip and a rear clip to these cars that can be detached and easily repaired or things like that, or you can even swap a new one on there. So the parts are a little more interchangeable with these new cars than they were necessarily with the old ones. I don't think that we're ever going to run into a situation where a car is not going to be able to enter a race because they've wrecked too many cars. But it just seems interesting that we're going into this, but not teams really don't have enough cars. It's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Elliot, I think this is almost kind of the place where we almost end the show. Before we go, I would love to get your pick for these first two races. We are an every other week show here at In Between Media to make room for other content as well. So, Elliot, can you lay me who are your winners going to be for the 500 and the Auto Club 400 here?
For Auto Club, and I promise I don't do this I'm normally not I'm picking Bowman for everything good in this show. You know that if you watched that last year, we'll pick Bowman for Auto Club just because it'd be nice as a fan to see that win get out of the way. And I'm doing this only because Jarrett's not here. I think Kyle Busch gets his Daytona 500 win this season.
Okay. I'm going to go with Ryan Blaney here in the 500. I think these Penske boys are ready to go. I was really close to picking Joey Logano, but I've just seen so much consistency out of Ryan Blaney. He knows how to work these tracks. So I'm excited for what he can do here in Daytona. Auto Club 400, I'm going to eat the chalk a little bit. I think it's going to be a Kyle Larson dominated race. So that's kind of my take on it. Elliot, it's been a blast though, man.
Yeah, this has been fun. Super awesome to have Rod Villagomez on. We certainly missed Jared Bakaysa, but he'll be back for our next episode of the Backroad. Well, for Seth Woolcock, I'm Elliot Hicks. So I guess, Seth, I'll give you one more opportunity to plug anything else that we may have to plug here for In Between Media before we get rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys know where to find us. I'm at between_SethFF on Twitter. Elliot is at ehicks39. And over In Between Media, guys, we are a little different. We like to combine feel-good lifestyle advice with our fantasy sports analysis. So whether you're a fan of fantasy NASCAR, fantasy football, fantasy golf, fantasy fighting, or just life in general, having fun, making the most out of it, head over to inbetweenmedia.com. You're going to get all the content we have for you. We got podcasts, YouTube series just like this, some other, maybe a little more entertaining, funnier YouTube series as well. And then we got our community, the In Between family. So head over to the website. You can get everything you need from us. Thank you for subscribing. It means so much to us. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. You will not be disappointed. Elliot, absolute pleasure, my friend.
For sure. And for our listeners from last year, we certainly haven't forgotten about our little, backroad advice, backroad stories thing we do at the end. This one just ran a little bit long. We didn't have our full crew. That'll certainly be back in the future. Well, all right, everyone. Thank you so much for taking this ride down the back road with us. Enjoy the Daytona 500 and the race at Auto Club. We'll see you back here next time on the Backroad.